And boom, baby. Welcome to the Mimi Show. As always, the Mimi Show is brought to you with the love and support of viewers like you. And Lil Skunky Products, Davey Media Productions, and our newest sponsor, Olivia Jordan Photography. So stay skunky, make those dreams a reality, get that vision real. And today we're welcoming Angie from
Hi.
ENCORE Labs. From ENCORE Labs. Hi. Say hello.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be on the pod.
Good. Thank you for coming and for your time and I have questions. I have so many questions. I'm like, oh my God, it's an actual marketing and sales person, this is just a blessing. This is a gift. So I thank you for your time. I do want to go ahead and get started with the first question, which is, I've been in LA or in California for 6-7 years now. And I've seen a lot of things change in weed and cannabis. But in regards to the marketing strategy, if you can divulge that information, marketing strategies and sales, has the regulation of cannabis changed the way that you guys do sales and marketing? Or just
That's a
marketing?
good question. I think really for us, because we're more B2B, like being in a testing lab, it's a lot more lax, I think, as far as how we market. Now, there are things like we can't, be active on Google or do public ads like that, but a lot of our marketing is internal. So we're reaching out to our clients or, some leads that we get through self-generation. I think we're starting to see more now. There's a lot more third-party companies that provide more leads, but I think it's better to just do it organically. But I would say the biggest thing when it comes to marketing has always been just about, service, relationships, and accuracy. I think has been the most important thing throughout the entire time, because I started testing about 6.5, 7 years ago. So we've seen a lot of the same trends and things like that.
Is this something that you, you just grew up liking marketing? You're just good at it? And you're just good at sales? You sell air to the birds?
Oh, I started selling vacuums like at 19. So sales has always been something I've done for a long time. But like I've come to realize like it's not about what you sell. It's the people. It's building relationships. It's the people business. I mean, whatever, like if you're good in sales, no matter whether you're selling vacuums or pens or cannabis testing or weed in general, it's just all about how you interact with people and how you build those relationships. So I think it was cool to find that intersection of like things that I love to do, which is connect with people, and weed, which is also something I love. And it just kind of went hand in hand, and like learning about cannabis safety really made me inspired to kind of keep going through this role.
I'm really interested in the testing part of it because recently I talked with, or I had a short conversation with a lady that she had a sign. I don't know if you saw one of my posts. We were at the Farmers Cup, and there was one lady outside with a sign saying, that you need to find peace not in the bud or in the bottle, that it's within and whatnot. And her point, once I started communicating, was that she had issues with the numbers. She had issues. She said, this is not your grandpa's pot. And I myself have seen things insane, numbers, 50 something percent, 40 something percent. And then recently though, it changed back to like 24s and 27s and maybe up to 32s. People use those numbers as marketing for their weed.
Yeah, I know, it's such a bummer, dude, because really, like, if you've been, consuming cannabis for a long time, whether you've been a pothead or something that you do really medicinally to help yourself, you'll know that in the beginning, it was never about the numbers. It was just like, how did it make you feel? How did it smell? How did it look? Was it sticky? There were so many different factors to choosing like what good weed is for you. And now these days, because, I think especially since COVID, where you couldn't really touch the bud and smell it anymore at the dispensaries, it's all about marketing.
And there's a
And
lot
one
of
of
new
the things,
people into weed.
yeah, it's
So
it's
they're
it's
learning
crazy.
first off like that. Like the numbers the most important. Like that's their first
You
lesson.
go into a dispensary and you're like, hey, what do you recommend? And they'll be like, oh, well, this one is the highest. And it's like, that's not what I asked, though. Like, I don't really care about the number. In fact, if it's too high, I get a little too paranoid. It's really all about the cannabinoid and the terpene blend, most especially the terps. But we've definitely seen like just a crazy trend. Like back in the day, like 20% was like, oh my God, that was
Whoa.
amazing. 30%, holy crap. And then you're reaching 40% on non-infused flower, and you're just like, that's weird. Now,
Non-infused flower. You said
you
that.
know, granted, we like breed a lot of these plants to have a higher like THC percentage. We did at one point see like a lot of labs were inflating these numbers,
Yes,
which
I
is,
saw that. I knew that was happening.
it's
Like
crazy.
there's
You're
no
telling me
freaking
like,
way.
40% of that bud is just like THC. That's crazy. But now we're starting to see, like, especially since the DCC had started like standardizing potency methods specifically only on flower, not everything else, not any other tests, but just flower. We've started to see those numbers start to drop off and quote unquote see real numbers. But there's still people that are, somehow still getting super duper high numbers. And it's a bummer because people are like, I love you guys, but I know another lab that'll get me like 30 something percent.
Higher percentage. Yeah.
Like they know,
It's a point of
everyone
sale.
knows.
It's become a
Exactly.
point of sale.
Nothing to do with the quality of the bud. It's just a
Or the
matter of how it's
feeling.
being sold. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's supposed to be, or my understanding is that weed just feels, what kind of high do you want?
Exactly.
And certain terpenes I've learned in the past 2 years or so are not my cup of tea. Because they're the one they do the paranoia whatnot, and like what is it, lenalul?
Oh yeah, that one kind of
from.
that one I think is kind of like you see that in like lavender where it's supposed to like kind of mellow you out. But there's some like I think it was like myrcene that's like the couch lock terpene, and you don't want it just depends on what you want and what you're going for.
Right.
When people ask like what's your favorite weed, like do you prefer indica or sativa? I'm like, it just depends on my mood. Like, is it the start of the day? Is it the end of the day?
Right.
What's my objective here? It's not about the numbers at the end of the day.
What I want to talk about the terpenes a little more, because I've seen some wraps and blunts that have that say they're infused with terpenes, and I'm like, well, my idea before getting more informed, before educating myself, was also then these are wraps that also have what it needs to get me high, but it's not. They were just infused with terpenes for flavor, right? They're coming from fruit and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like essential oils, or there are like those factors that, compounded with the cannabinoid, they might have you have a special effect. But I mean, for the most part, a lot of it is flavoring, and not a lot of it is cannabis derived, which, you find a lot of these terps like in really everything in natural organic life. Whether it's like, peppers or lavender or oranges.
Right.
So
everything has terpenes. Go figure. Yeah. I had to learn that too, because I felt it weird. I'm like, okay, so are you selling me the wraps because they're wraps, or are you selling me the wraps as if they're infused with terpenes, and you're giving me the idea of, as a non-educated person, that this can be a way for me to infuse my joint? So there's a lot of miseducation just because there's a lack of education. And your first response to things is just what the limited that I think more education from the brands, I think, would be better. But I feel misled often.
I think one of the things that'll help combat like this whole THC focus that we're seeing in the market today for consumers is brand education. To be able to, educate on things like terpenes and what different cannabinoids what they do and some of their properties on the body. And, you know, I think that would really, really, really help. I admire a lot of those brands that, you know, focus more so on the feeling and really just the quality of the bud versus the THC
percentage.
Yeah, but it's
which
gonna
they
be,
can't even test. They go, you have that, you outsource that. You can't test yourself as a if I had weed, I couldn't say it's like home tested or something. I have to
oh
send it
yeah,
off.
you'd have to go to a lab, and if it were gonna be on shelves, like, you know, you have to go through a whole process with the state on how to do the compliance testing through a certified lab. Now, if you were a home grower and you wanted to find out, like, hey, like how high is my bud? You actually
Right.
could, you know, go into, you know, any type of cannabis testing lab as long as you're over 21,
Yeah.
and do that R&D testing.
Does that hinder like small business weed or small brands to have to pay for this step before they actually go into production or into the stores?
Yeah, I mean, that's a loaded one, because we are starting to see, like, a lot of our smaller farmers, or a lot of ones that have started that are like kind of our legacy farmers that have been around for a long time. They might have a smaller farm. Cost is a really important thing. So testing costs are something that are typically really the most vital. And the tricky thing with flower is that it can be very sensitive. So we're looking at like potential mold growth, you know, pesticides. And even if they don't use pesticides and, you know, they do everything organically, the reality of drift is a thing. So they might have like nearby, you know, fruit growers that like have like a drop of pesticides like drift into their crops. So there's a lot of different factors, and the R&D testing is super duper important for them before they run it to compliance, because R&D testing, we can
you tell me what the letters R&D stand for?
Yeah, research and development testing. So that essentially is like anyone can do it. You can do it. I can do it. Any licensed grower, you know, whoever has bud on their hands, they can do it. Just to see like, hey, is there mold in this weed? Is there pesticides? You know, is
what makes it clean? Is that what makes a clean order?
Yeah.
So they send it to the lab, and you don't just get the percentage of, you know, of THC, but you also get, you're clear for mold, you're clear
all these
for
contaminants,
pesticides, and and then you're free to I guess sell it.
Yeah,
right?
Go to the next step. But the R&D testing, that's not state testing. When you go through the DCC testing, which is the Department of Cannabis Control, when you go through their whole rigmarole of testing, you have to go to a licensed lab. They come and pick up the flower. They randomly pick a bunch of different buds from the batch, and then we test it at the lab for all of these different tests, like the ones that I had just listed, to see if it'll pass and to get that potency and that terpene profile off that bit of buds that we get. And if it fails, let's say there's mold or high contamination of like pesticides, they have to essentially either one, destroy the entire batch, which is a heartache, or two, remediate, which essentially means like get rid of the problem to try and resell. So some people, when it comes to like, let's say moldy flower, there are services that, you know, through
they demold the flower.
Yeah, like sonic.
No!
You know, it's like, you know, radiation, just different types of things. And there's not a lot of services, I think, but that they can get rid of the mold.
That's possible.
It's possible. I really don't know the success rate of it. Other people, they turn it into oil, like distillate. They lose a lot of money on it, but then they're able to kind of resell that. And then there is that unfortunate percentage that'll just go straight to the traditional market and then, you know, sell it to the local unlicensed dispensaries.
Like that. Yeah, with you
know,
pesticides in it, just
all that. Exactly. They're like, oh, we destroyed it. I mean, on the books anyway, but it'll still be like on the
And
streets.
there's no
So
telling what we have unless it is tested by the lab. That's one of the reasons I've liked actually getting the herb directly from dispensaries and from event brands at events, because I
mhm.
know that it's gone through that process. Now you just added an extra level of imagination with my brain, thinking, okay, well, you could have eradicated the mold, but it could have been previously moldy. No, now you said that you said much. You used the word not much or something like that. So there's an amount that's allowed of pesticide, a percentage that's allowed.
Yeah, when it comes to pesticides, depending on what pesticides there are. So, it's broken into two categories. There's category 1 pesticides, which essentially means any trace of that pesticide, if there's any type of amount, immediately it's a field batch.
It's a
Can't
no.
have it.
Yeah.
But then there's category 2 pesticide where, if there is a trace amount, as long as it's below a certain threshold, and each pesticide is different, you're allowed to sell it on shelves. Some I think are, I wouldn't want to say safer to consume, but it wouldn't cause as much harm. But the category 1, like I think like myclobutanol, if
Would
you
that be
know
on the label?
it would not be on the label. So everything that goes through testing is already pre-labeled, and as soon as they get that certificate of analysis of a pass, it's all good to go to shelves. Now you could ask your local dispensary, like, hey, can I see a certificate of analysis from the lab? And it's a whole extensive report of everything we tested,
I
all the
would not like
different
that
amounts.
person. I'm asking for.
Most people,
Isn't
when I
that
go
the
to
lady?
dispensaries and ask, they either don't know what it is, or they don't have access to it,
I don't know
which is a
where it
bummer.
is.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I'm not too sure, but
Right.
it's good. It passed.
Right.
But there's still like a small threshold. A lot of it, I think is okay to consume. I know that, like, back in the 90s and early 2000s, 70s, 80s, back before then, we were smoking, I think, worse, dirtier
Yeah.
weed, but but there is like a generally a safe amount, depending on the type of pesticide.
The idea of weed at the pharmacy, have you, what's your opinion on that, of us going to a pharmacy, of it going to the point where it's over the counter medicine, or a prescription from the pharmacist? People want that.
That would be interesting. I feel like there wouldn't be as much, you wouldn't be empowered to choose what works best for you. It's like, I feel like, one, the pharmacies would be super slammed. Two, I think a lot of these brands that are out there today would lose that opportunity of being able to sell to the people and be able to share the story of what they grow, what they manufacture and make. And a lot of these brands out there, they do it with heart, and those are the ones that you want to work with. So having it all kind of umbrellaed under pharma, I think, would really make things difficult, and I don't know, almost change the perception of cannabis and the culture. I think would like kill the culture. Like, it's one thing having it in a 7-Eleven, but it's another thing having it like at a pharmacy.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people wanting that. A lot of people that are for more, government regulation on it, and that they want it to be they want the percentages to be only to a certain point, and for it to be in the pharmacy, and they think that that's the way that people are going to be able to manage to not come to the points of, say, addiction, or the overuse of it. They think that that would be what would change that.
That's wild. I mean, everyone's so different too. Like, to be able to say like everyone's only allowed to have this much, that's wild. I mean, everyone's endocannabinoid system's different. Like, some people are just super lightweight. Some people need a lot more, and I don't know
enough.
it'll
don't think
push
we
you back
know
into the
enough.
traditional market, and you're, your local like drug dealer, or drug dealer. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
cannabis,
yeah, yeah.
but
You dealer. It is. It's like, yeah.
it's
They're all drugs. The drugstore. I never.
yeah, right.
I've always had a weird relationship with the idea of drugs, because it's like, well, they're bad, but then I go to the drugstore, to the pharmacy or the
Yeah.
drugstore.
Hmm.
So it's like, okay, so is it good because you made it? Is it acceptable because you created it in laboratory with chemicals and made a little pill? Is that why that's a good drug? And
Yeah.
and and this is not a good drug because it's a plant. I'm battling that with my own therapist right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm like, shoot, like, I mean, things on our, cannabis, like when it comes to edibles, it is the safest thing to consume because the limits on, pesticides and solvents and, mold even, I would say they're way more stringent than a lot of the limits that you have on grocery store shelves. Like imagine the amount of pesticides that are in our
Oh
everyday
no, not the
vegetables.
FDA.
I can't,
They
don't
let
even get me
everything
started.
pass.
My son's Lunchables had a recall for heavy metals, and I'm like,
They
we
let
would
everything
never.
pass. Like
You
there could
know?
be a finger in there. There's only, as long as it's under 5 fingers, we're good. You can eat the ice cream.
You know?
This much poop is fine. This much feces is fine. This many spiders per hot dog, or like, I went down a
Yeah.
rabbit hole one
It's
day. It was
crazy.
not
I
funny.
have like an advantage, I think, of just being able to actually visit these brands, get to know them, and really understand their story, and then to be able to advocate for that type of brand where I'm like, these people, like, these are some real awesome people. Like, I advocate
Meet
for
the
them,
people. Yeah, that's my favorite
but
thing
you
to
don't
do.
get that when it's, just big corporate, culture type.
That's why I am right now being a big advocate for the artists and the creators in the cannabis space, because without them, quote quote us, it's just a store. Without the fun, without the art, without the people with the cameras, without the people rolling these big huge joints or making them into
Yeah.
things, like it's the Star Wars Death Star, you can smoke out of it, or you know
Yeah,
without these things, all you have is you going to the store to buy a thing instead of
exactly.
the
Exactly.
experience. um
That part.
Recently, I have a few little birds have told me or confirmed to me that, who are in marketing, that the budget for marketing has been cut, that it's not as big as it was, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of artists and people that create in the space aren't getting paid, and they're working for free, and things like that. Now, I know that you had said that your marketing strategy isn't really so much with the public as it is with the actual businesses, but in regards to that statement, would you say it's true?
Yeah, it's really a trickle down effect. Like I would say like a lot of people aren't paying their bills because the people that owe them money aren't paying it either. So it starts from like the dispensaries not paying the bills
Too
to
much
the
credit.
distributors and the brands, and exactly so
Too
much
much credit.
credit out there, and we put a lot of trust in this industry, and unfortunately it gets destroyed a lot. And so it happens to us all the time. We're kind of one of the ones at the bottom of the chain where our clients can't pay us because they haven't got their payment from the dispensaries, and it trickles down, and okay, well, now it's cutting our budgets into all the fun things or in all the marketing and all the things that we really want to do to be able to help create a better experience. Because I mean, face it, as a lab, we're kind of boring compared to like what the brands do with the consumers. So we try and
Right.
be out there and be involved in events, sponsor what we can. We used to throw really big fun parties for our clients and fly them down, but it's a different time now. So
It
we have
is.
to kind of be a lot more intentional with our budget and things like that. So I wouldn't say we don't have as big as big a budget
Yeah,
as
so
we used
yeah,
to
it is
for
correct. Yeah,
marketing.
it had been
Yeah.
cut. What do you believe that maybe like a union would help this kind of situation, so that there could be an established budget for marketing that's just across the board, like a standard, because they're being protected by a sort?
That would be cool. I know that there are like a couple unions out there. I know for some people, union is a scary word, but I think we're
If it
advocating
weren't for
for the
unions, we
people.
wouldn't have Saturdays. If it weren't for
Exactly.
unions, we wouldn't have the weekend.
There's a lot of companies that mistreat their employees, and they really need one. I'm really fortunate that I'm not in that position, because I've been with ENCORE for 3.5 years, maybe. I'm not too sure. It's been a long time, and it's like dog years, you know. There are people that have been with ENCORE from the very beginning, from when their doors open. And there's a lot of them, so our turnover rate's really low, which is awesome. But it never hurts to have a union, I think, advocate for the people and be able to have that security for everyone, especially in this space.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, well, I know there's cannabis unions, but not. I know there has to be at least one or two. There's something, but in regards to the people that create the environment and the vibe of the cannabis space, I don't think there's anyone protecting these people. Or making like a standard, like, okay, this is the standard pay, or this is the standard of what, can be allocated, and then anything extra is just you being generous. Like, that would be nice, I think.
Yeah, I've heard too many horror stories from, people I've worked with and a lot of friends of mine, and I'm just like, dang, that's why you guys are being treated like that's so unfair. And a lot of people are overworked and underpaid and underappreciated, and
there's too much credit out there, and we need more money.
Yeah, exactly. What if we operated like it was a business in the culture?
Yeah. We need more money. We need more bartering. I think we don't give enough value to exchanges, or at least not the way that I see our value. I think a lot of bartering and exchanges do work.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to things like events and things like that.
Right. Like, there has to be an agreement to where people don't feel taken advantage of on either side.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys doing anything with AI at ENCORE Labs?
I think for really hard emails, like we're like, hang on, I need this special tone, and then let me tweak it because this is how I feel. But sometimes that for editing a lot of our articles, our marketing team is small. It's just 3 of us. But, we'll write down our articles and then run it through chat to be like, okay, does this sound right? Make some edits. But we try and be as organic as we can. I don't know. I have
any automation changes in regards to testing that could possibly use AI in the future?
You know what? I think that one is above my pay grade, and okay. I would definitely defer to someone like our quality director or our quality manager or our lab director to be able to kind of field that question a little bit better. But I mean, shoot, AI is doing a lot of things right now. It really wouldn't surprise me if there was like a huge benefit for testing. Yeah.
When have you ever encountered, or is there a story that you can share in regards to maybe an emergency or something that happened that doesn't happen all the time when it came to testing cannabis, maybe something that you found that had never been found before, or like is there anything that has stood out as different?
Oh gosh, where do I even start? They're quite a bit of stories, but like I think one that really sticks with me was really early on in my career in testing. It was during the vape gate, and so that was when a lot
What is this vape gate? What is this vape gate?
That is it was when a lot of, I would say, traditional market, but maybe even some legal brands, I'm not too sure, because anyway, they were using vitamin E acetate to kind of fill their vape cartridges. Sorry. And vitamin E acetate was kind of like a filler. And you see that a lot in lotions and things like that. And when you heat up vitamin E, like it is,
Yeah, it's people smoking this
yeah, it's
mixed
it's like
with the rosin or mixed with the oil.
with a disty or something. Yeah. So they'll mix it in, it's a liquid, but when you heat it up, it turns into vapor. But when it cools down, it coagulates. So a lot of people were smoking this, and the vapor would coagulate in their lungs. And around that time, the lab that I had worked with, we did like a piece with, I think it was like NBC, like a news channel about this. And we had calls from all over the country. And a majority of them were concerned moms that unfortunately were in states where cannabis was illegal. And they'd be like, look, my son is a star athlete and he is intubated and he hasn't been able to breathe like for over a week, or, unfortunately
That's where weed gets a bad reputation. Is
yeah,
from these
and
situations, God.
it's terrible. And we did see it more on the traditional market side when we had offered that testing, open to everyone. None of our clients, ever tested for vitamin E acetate, which was amazing. They all passed, but we saw it a lot in states where it wasn't regulated. So that's why I'm huge on making cannabis legal, at least recreationally legal, and
attainable
exactly.
in a safe way. That's not that. Oh,
Exactly.
God.
Having safe access. Like, this one woman, unfortunately, like, her daughter had just gotten to college, and one day she just drops dead. Had no previous ailments, had a clean bill of health, didn't test positive for any of these drugs. But the only thing that she had on her was like vape pens, and it was like a big like cartridge of like a variety of vape pens, which already off the bat is illegal. And we had tested it, and it had tested over 500 times the legal limit for certain pesticides and heavy metals and even solvents. And what was marketed to be something that was above, I forget, it was like 80 or 90% THC, was all but like something like 12% THC. So this poor woman was smoking poison. It got to the point where even their state coroner, like, there was a lot of complications with having to have that particular sample cross state lines, but they had marked it as just a test sample or something like that. So we were able to test for it and saw just a horrifying list of pesticides, and just so many other things. Now, we don't know in the end if that was the reason for her passing, but we definitely knew that it didn't help her health at all. So a lot of these things that we see, it's really, really sad when a lot of people don't have safe access to cannabis. And it's why I was so passionate to pursue this path. Like, I don't have a science degree, like I said before, I was selling vacuums, but I understood the importance of safe access. And so that story has always stuck with me in just that time in life. We don't see vitamin E really anymore, which thank God. But it was a stark reality at that time, like 2018, 2019.
I have friends in states where it's illegal, and they watch, what I do, and they see, and they just, it blows their mind, and they can't believe that I could just get these really good vapes and whatnot directly from the hands of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way that people that unfortunately are consuming in states where it's illegal, is there any way for them to know at all if it's not good? Is there anything, how they have like these testers that you could test for different things? Is there anything that they can do?
Gosh, I mean, unfortunately, that's a tough one. I mean, we use really, really intense analytical instruments to be able to analyze all these different compounds. So at-home tests, I don't think will be as reliable, but I also think that they don't have such like an extensive panel for like a do it at home type of test. Really,
Like a little stick you can put inside the vape and pull it out, and if it's purple, that means it's not good or something.
That would be amazing. There's just so many different things. I think for pesticides, like
how you test pH, you know, how you test pH, something simple.
You know, that would be amazing, and it would put us out of business. But you know what?
No.
But for the people, man. We test for
just to know if it's bad. Maybe not tell us what all it's got in there, but just to be like, you know, like a pregnancy test, blue, pink, good, bad, yes, no.
There's just so much. I mean, we test for 66 different pesticides in the state test. We test for, 4, 5, 6 different types of molds. A huge list. I forget how many residual solvents. Whew,
what is up with mold in California? Is it the ocean?
It's a lot of things. Like, people don't realize, like, you know, we test for things like the 4 different strains of Aspergillus and then E. coli and Salmonella. I mean, something is, you know, not washing your hands and then starting to trimming the buds and that starts to grow things. It could be a lot of things in the air. I know certain areas, like even like LA, there's mold in the air that comes from like the vents. Because sometimes we'll go out to facilities and they'll be like, I don't know where this mold is coming from. And we come to find, oh, okay, well, like this vent back here is moldy. Or we did some environmental swabs and found traces of mold and it's blowing straight onto the crop. Or we do one with platelets. So we get these like little plates and we put them out into the facility, wait for a little while, and then over time see if anything grows on these plates, and you'll start to see mold spores. It's and storage conditions too. I mean, if it is, you know, dark and humid, you're gonna find a lot of mold.
Is there any amount that's safe? Any amount of mold that's actually like, well, you know, that's not that bad?
I don't think so. It's a detect or non-detect situation. So like, if it's detected, then it's an automatic failure. Because mold will keep growing. Even if we don't detect it maybe at the time from the small sample that we get out of an entire batch, let's say, you know, the distributor has it in storage for a while and maybe the conditions aren't the greatest. Then they hit the dispensary shelves and the conditions aren't the greatest. All of a sudden, like, you might have moldy weed or moldy cookies, something like that. So it's there's no safe amount because it's always going to grow. It's a living, you know, like a organism, bacteria.
Oh, yeah. It's mold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's mold.
California mold. What were the impacts of, or did you notice any impacts on the weed and on what we smoke due to the fires that happened?
Ooh, that's a good question. Testing wise, I don't think so. I think that there had been people that had tested for different like metals and pesticides to see if there was anything. I can't say that anything sticks out at the top of my head. Mm-hmm. A lot of where the fires are affected, a lot of these grows that we have in the area are indoor. So they're not as impacted as those that are outdoor. Some people, I mean, their crops were entirely ruined due to the fires, but I would say a majority of our clients grow indoor.
Okay. Is there I have a friend that she swears by mushrooms from indoor being bad for her, and they need to be in the ground, in the soil. Is there really any difference from indoor outdoor? Truly.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, indoor you have so much more control over the environment. I mean, to like the nth degree, but there's nothing like sun-grown cannabis. I feel like the terps are always, I don't know, they taste different. Something about sun-grown. I have no scientific like facts to be able to back that, but typically with sun-grown, they do have a lower THC percentage, but they do have a really good terpene percentage. But with indoor, like I said, you have so much more control of the environment to get the results that you want. So there is a notable difference in quality or type, but yeah, I would say There's nothing like good sun grown. There's a lot of trash sun grown out there too, but
Yeah. Well, is it because anybody can just grow it? Just it could. There's not much. From what I've seen, like there's chemicals. You can't just grow weed like a tomato.
yeah,
Like you have to add things to clean it off. Is that right? The term? Am I saying it right?
you know, that's a good question. I would say, like, just from personal experience, I definitely had issues with pests. So a lot of times, like whether it's organic or not, pesticides do help with keeping your bud clean. But I know a lot of like these outdoor farmers, they're seasoned, they know what kind of organic pesticides to use to kind of keep the crop clean and growing. But as far as the cultivation process, I'm not too seasoned in that. My bud was just okay. I lived in Long Beach. It was, I grew in the side yard.
What's people always say Cali weed. What so far would you say is a quality, the best weed? What would it take to say, no, I know I have the top of the line? Because I'm seeing eights at over $100. I'm seeing, and now it's like, this isn't for the people. This is something else.
Yeah,
this isn't for medicine. This is something else.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it really is, like, I've always been a person that says, like, go with your nose. You just kind of know. The nose knows. But I don't know that. I know it's tough to.
There's no telling, is it? It's just a marketing thing to say that you're the best.
I mean, really, it's the quality, like, the nose and the feel, like how the bud feels and the structure and how it tastes, how it smokes, I think is really the most important thing. But I don't know, some of these brands that they charge like $100 for an eighth, they source it somewhere that might sell it to another brand for cheaper. So I don't know, it's tough. You won't catch me buying $100 eighths.
Yeah, I'm seeing, and they call it luxury. It'll be like luxury cannabis or
just
whatever. I'm like, what kind of, does it come with the jewelry?
I a lot of it, I think, is marketing and just being able to like make a profit, I think. Because a lot is being put into
because of
it.
having to pay so much for regulations and for
I mean, taxes, and then dispensaries. There are some dispensaries that won't take flower under 25%, which is crazy because you'll have some really, really good bud. But if the certificate of analysis says like anything below 25%, they won't take it. I just the numbers thing,
that numbers thing.
Yeah, that's really, it's just numbers. It's lazy marketing. Honestly, it's not educating.
Not educating? Yeah. It seems like that's the problem across the board, and where we lack and where we lose is just that in not knowing. Yeah. Do you have? I lost my question. Hold on. This was good. Dang nabbit. And I'm sober. I haven't smoked yet. It'll come back. What makes ENCORE Labs different? Why should people pay the ENCORE Labs rather than another company? What sets you guys apart?
You couldn't pay us to get what you wanted as far as results, or like,
you can't buy ENCORE Labs.
You can't buy us. Integrity, I think, is something that is at the forefront of what we do. We are really about building relationships. I think I'm really blessed with the team that I have. My sales team, they really genuinely care about their clients, and service is something that's important to them because it's their name in the industry that's on the line. So a lot of times when they're not getting the answers they need, they're advocating really hard for the clients. Our turnaround time is solid. I think it's very competitive, like 2 to 3 days, sometimes 3 to 4, depending on what the volume looks like. But communication is something that's really important to us. And we have a lot of people that we know in this space that are like, listen, I might get a cheaper rate at another lab, but I can't get a hold of my salesperson for the life of me, or my account manager. It's taking forever and I don't know why. So communication has been really important, especially coming down from like the lab to the salespeople, so that they're able to communicate with the clients. So like I said, it's no matter what, it's always going to be the people business. And a lot of us really care about cannabis, but moreover, we care about the people that we work with, because we build relationships with them. They're not just like,
I feel it from you. And I got to meet Tony.
Oh yeah,
I got to meet Tony at the Farmers Cup.
I saw that,
and I got the same vibe. It's just, you know, and he said the same thing, because I asked we asked him what's his favorite part, and he said it's the people. So you guys really are very much about the connection with your clients. I know you don't have let's say a foot in or away in the cannabis space outside with the different people, but when it's you and the brands, it seems like you know, this is very important, the connection and the relationships.
Hell yeah. I mean, a lot of these people, like I've been doing this for so long. They've been my clients since day one, and they've followed me around for years, which has been amazing. I mean, you never know, like, whether we like to treat everyone the same, whether you are like this big hot shop brand or just like a really small conservative farm, you never know where people's lives are going to take them. And I think being able to just treat them all the same and give them the same quality service, it goes such a long way just overall, because shoot, maybe that small conservative farm turns into this huge conglomerate. Who knows? But we're just all just people, man. We're just people, and that's what we understand.
What to you would make a big hot shop weed brand or weed company? They just have a lot of money?
Yeah, I think really just a lot of presence, presence. Even the big ones with a lot of presence don't have a lot of money at the end of the day. Like, at least they're not like making that profit. But just ones that just have, for us, it would be ones that have a lot of need for testing, because testing isn't cheap, but some people do it really consistently and have high volume.
It's a priority.
Time is money, and they need to be able to have that communication and have that turnaround time to be able to meet their demands with the dispensaries and the distributors.
2-3 days, and you know exactly what's up with your weed, and you can go ahead and put it out.
Yeah,
in 2-3 days. That's wild. That's why. That's why I'm like, can we do this at home? But I don't want to put y'all out of business.
I wish I'd be doing it all the time.
I'm gonna ask you a few more questions, and then we'll let you go.
No, of
and I
course.
appreciate you. Let's see. You already talked about integrity, but how do you differ from other like, is there really a competition amongst labs? Like, there is.
Yeah, because some people, man, they could give two damns about a relationship. They just want, they just want the potency numbers, and they just want like the bottom of the barrel pricing.
So that's what you're competing with, is people who can be bought.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, some of these guys are big guys because they have high operating costs. But you're like, damn, if I give you this rate, I'm not going to be able to keep my lights on. It's not sustainable. And the potency people, the people that have like super high potencies that don't make sense. It's unfortunate because we lose business because of that. And our clients a lot of times are understanding of like, hey, we know what you have is the answer and is accurate, but I need these numbers to sell.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and there's
sucks.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer, but they always come back because eventually these guys that have these bottom of the barrel pricing, they can't sustain it for a long time. They make a mistake. Their big whale leaves, go somewhere else, and now they're scrambling. And a lot of people are getting in trouble. I think the Department of Cannabis Control is really cracking down on labs and processes and just trying to find people I guess, the bad actors in the space.
Okay. I don't like that. I don't like
Oh, it's
knowing
such a
that it's a
bummer. It's so
possibility for
stressful.
people to just pay and say, well, yeah, it's more a percentage, because I don't know, weed to me is so like a pure thing,
Yeah,
you know, that
I
when
feel that.
somebody does that kind of like skeevy thing, it makes me feel like, oh, you're just being like everything else in America. You know, you're Walmarting all over my cannabis or whatever.
Exactly. We don't want that. I like our boutique-ish, and there are
Yeah.
people,
Yes.
unfortunately, they're like, hey, like, dude, I know that there's paint thinner in my vape cartridges, but can you please pass it? And I'm like, well, no, I can't. I can't pass
No.
it.
No.
Like,
My
don't you have
word.
kids that might be smoking this? Like, no. Mm-mm.
Is it on the labels? Does it say Encore Labs tested? Is that one of the things?
Sometimes. It just depends on the partnership. Some people, they bounce around lab to lab to lab, that it's hard to keep those stickers on. And other people, they've just been rocking with us for a long time and they like to have that sticker on there, but it won't
I
always
think
say.
that I think that's a good idea. I think I saw it on some rosin somewhere, and the bartender made a big deal of who tested the rosin. And she's like, and it's tested by so and so. So you, and I'm like, okay. So I mean,
There
would
must be
that be
someone. Yeah.
right? Would that? So I'm like, okay, I'll take it, because you're making a big deal out of who tested it, and letting me know that it's safe, and because of who tested it. Uh, would that be something marketing wise that you guys would work on, or would maybe in the future, or if it's even a thought to be on the label and to make it a point, like, okay, no, this is Encore Labs tested. You put that little circle with the E, and that's going to be one of our,
Kind of like our
a way to
branding.
highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing. I like it really at the end of the day, like the bud is all about the patient and the consumer. Like
Right.
when the reason that we have this THC traction is because of them, kind of. It's also because of the lack of education given by dispensaries, but that's a whole nother story for another time. But at the end of the day, it's about them. And if they start to see that branding and start to understand more about it, they're like, okay, yeah,
Yeah, because
I
I
want to
like
find more
that.
Encore weed. Like, where's that at? We
More,
try our
yeah.
best
Where's
to
are
go
you
out
but
to.
Encore Lab tested? Like, for somebody to say that, like,
Mhm.
do you have Encore Lab tested weed? Like, that would be a new way to ask for it.
I love that. I know at the dispensary we did have like a shelf display of all of our different clients that we tested for. So I
That's
think that'd be a
nice.
really good thing to kind of bring back, because we always try to, like, before I'm 8 months pregnant, so you'll hardly see me outside of my house. But
Congratulations.
thank you. But like, we would be very active in going to dispensaries and working with a lot of groups to just educate. We
Yeah.
worked with the LA shoot. We worked with the LA Office of Cannabis Management, and we did like a 2 or 3 week panel with them where we would go out to different areas throughout LA County and we would just educate just the public, whoever wanted to show up, about cannabis, safety of cannabis,
I love that.
what potency means, what terpenes are. We've worked with different dispensaries and independent education groups just to get out there and talk to people who are kind of curious or who want to know more about cannabis, to be able to empower them to make the right decisions. So I think that hand in hand with a lot of that branding, that tested by Encore,
Yeah.
promotion, I think would really be beneficial, I think, for not just us, but even our brands too that we work with.
That was my when I saw when we were at the Farmers Cup, and I saw, your coworker or whatnot, Tony's shirt, and him like, okay, this is, let me ask him about the percentages. And I just went off because it's been a question I've had in my head for so long. And I'm like, when I had a chance, I'm going to ask, does it matter? Is there no such thing as anything over 26? Like, what's happening? And he's like, you're going to get me in trouble.
Very Tony.
But I was so happy to have someone to answer the question, to answer me, like what is up with these percentages. And he said, if you see anything, 40% or whatnot, that's a red flag. And I've seen a lot of good 27%, and that's good. So that moment, I know we caught it on camera and it was part of like a little interview, but it did matter, and it does matter to me because of it being education. I want to know more. I want to know that there's people that pay for the number. I want to know there's people that pay for you to overlook a pesticide. I want to know these things so that we can avoid them, so that we know what we're smoking, and I know what I'm promoting. Because in my case, I show off, and I do reviews, of weed, and it tastes like this, it looks like this. So it'd be nice to have more information on the label and to have the little logo of which lab tested it, so that I can judge. I can be like, okay, I know that lab is, since we're there at that point.
They have a lot of brands do QR codes to their certificate of analysis or their COA. And it'll lead straight to that report. And then a lot of times it'll tell you on the top who the lab is that tested it. We have a couple clients that do that, and I'm really grateful for that, because it's empowering for everybody.
It is. I like it. I've seen it and I like it. And I like how that butt tender just made a big deal about the testing of this particular rosin and who did it. And I'm like, okay. Because then it's my trust. Now you've created a trust in the purchase, by telling me that this is it's a safe because of who tested it, and the qualifications and the quality of that testing facility will give you the best. Now this is the best rosin. Now this is the best weed. It's not because it's called the luxury or because it's $100 and something. It's because 100% it's safe, and we know that this lab, that's what they do. Okay, Angie, is there anything else that we can probably inform the people, that I can give a little tidbit, a little lesson of sorts of what can we give them? What can we give them as a takeaway?
Oh yeah, buy legal weed. I think, especially when it comes to the manufactured products like cartridges and edibles, you want to make sure that it's free from, high amounts of residual solvents, high amounts of pesticides, high amounts of heavy metals and mold, because long-term use of a lot of these, of these contaminated products is not good for your health. So buy legal. And if you have any questions, just DM at Stay Green Angeline, listed somewhere around here.
Right
and
underneath you.
right there.
Underneath
Okay, here we go. Right there.
Underneath, yeah.
And I am very happy to help answer any questions that you have. And I have a really awesome team that's also as excited and enthusiastic as well.
Thank you. That's what I've experienced from you guys. So thank you. Thank you, Angie, for answering all my questions. And
thank you for asking.
I'm a new person. I feel like if somebody comes telling me something, I can rebuttal. And I like that. I can say something in return. I know I have information.
About.
Thank you. All right, that's it. That's the Mimi Show. Thank you, Angie, for coming and for informing us. And please reach out to her if you have any other questions, or if you're a cannabis brand that's looking for better testing, for integrity testing.
Hell yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mimi. Have a good one.
Thank you. That was